Hey everybody, we are back to talk about actually today's shareholder call about Shanghai Disneyland opening up. We're not getting into all the Disney stuff and all the things about how much money Disney has lost and all that, but we want to kind of focus it in just on what was announced for Shanghai Disneyland's upcoming reopening and what it may or may not mean for Disneyland. Because we know that's something that the people that follow along with us are generally really interested in, and not everybody is going to be on the shareholders call or interested in that stuff, so I thought, well, let's just put it all in this one place. So if you missed it, then Shanghai Disneyland has announced that they are opening May 11th, and they've got a lot of new things in place, so we'll talk a little bit about how it may or may not fit with Disneyland. So the first thing is just controlled capacity, and I know that's something we've talked a lot about. Is I don't think we think, and we're not getting into like any guesses of dates at this point. Obviously there's going to be a rollout plan. We'll talk more about what it means when it does get to that stage, but the controlled capacity makes sense. I don't think that was anything surprising at all. Do you?
No, I mean, I don't think anybody is expecting the parks to open at full capacity. That would just be, I guess, irresponsible, and I don't think people would respond to that well, and I don't think the government would want that. So yeah, I mean, I don't know what percentage of capacity they're going to be allowed to open up at, but yeah, I mean, so Shanghai,
so they, I guess, are allowed per the government, the Chinese government, to be at 30%, but they've said that they are going to open below that. So what that number might be, who knows? Obviously, again, different whether we're talking about Magic Kingdom or specifically Disneyland or DCA or anything like that. Now, they did talk about, though, using a way of controlling the tickets in terms of kind of having that specific date entry. I believe what it was is they'll hold the number far below. Advanced reservations will be required. So this immediately reminded me, and something I know you and I have talked a lot about, but just it really feels like when it opens up, my best guesstimate is that they'll use something like the Galaxy's Edge preview system that they had for, the entire world was battling away, and we did videos and podcasts on that trying to get a day to come and see Galaxy's Edge, and then eventually it was opened up. And so it seems like they already have a form and system, a form in place. It'd be really surprising to me if they don't use something like that.
I mean, it makes sense. It'll be interesting to see even what the like how many people are even wanting to go. I mean, is it going to be as competitive as it was to get into Galaxy's Edge? I mean, for Galaxy's Edge previews, we talked about it. We had several friends who were trying, we were all kind of working to try to get in there as for the days and times that we were wanting. So I don't know. It's so hard to guess what people are going to do. I mean, do people want to go to the park early? Do they not? My guess is there's a small group of people who, if they allowed them to, would be camped out at midnight the night before trying to get in. But then there's going to be people who just stay away for the next year. So it's hard to know even what that system is going to be. Is it going to crash? I mean, if it's like with Galaxy's Edge, then basically you log on by a certain time, and then they start pulling people seemingly randomly to select their days and times and stuff. And so they used it for Galaxy's Edge. I think it worked well-ish for that. So it seems like it would make sense to just do that. Yeah,
they have a real advantage over a lot of theme parks in that there's so many systems in place that they've utilized in some way. I mean, even we're not talking specifically about the rides right now, but like the virtual queue for ride resistance stuff, but it does make sense that they'd use something like that. And that is the big question that I know, I mean, everybody we know that works in kind of themed entertainment industry has the same question in the convention world is, once things open up, who will want to go? And there's going to be some people that want to be there and they'd be there today, and there's other people that are going to say, I'm going to let a few waves go, give it a week or 2 weeks or 2 months, and there's going to be other people that say, yeah, I'm going to give it a year or wait till there's a vaccine or something like that. And I think I know something you keep telling me every time we talk about all this stuff is a lot's just going to depend on how things proceed just in general, in the next days, weeks, what the numbers are, how other things as they're being open. So it's really hard to sit here recording this on May 5th and say, well, if they reopen on June 15th, it'll be this popular, or June, or July 15th or August or whatever it is. So we'll see.
Yeah, and for me, what I've kind of figured in my head is, as long as we're healthy, we'll probably be going, but we'll be very careful and kind of responsible for ourselves when we do go, whether it's to a convention or to a theme park or to wherever it is that we go, until things are really under control or we've find out we've had the antibodies or whatever the case is. When we go places, I'm still going to social distance. I'm not going to get into a tight crowd of people as much as I can avoid it, and I'll be wearing my masks and stuff. And so as much as we're like wanting to get out of the house and do some of these things that we normally do as, you know, escape from all the real world stuff, we're still going to be, we're going to be responsible for ourselves in that scenario. I mean, it'll just be, we'll ourselves social distance, even if it's not required to, or even depending on what they have in place. We'll still, I'm sure, take it a step up, and we'll still be going and washing our hands a lot more, and we'll have our antibacterial with us. And so we'll be careful even once things open up, just for ourselves, because, you know, we'll see what happens and what people are out there and stuff.
Yeah, and I know we've talked about like someone like my mom, who I try to take to the parks like a couple times a month in general. We won't for a while. Like that'll be something that happens later on. I mean, obviously she's her own adult, you know, and she'll make her own decisions too, but at least on my side, I won't be like promoting that or pushing that. It'll be like, okay, let's give it a little while. I know for me, being kind of germophobic just in life in general, I'm always like having a napkin that I'm using to open doors with. I'm always washing my hand 50 times a day, things like that. So that will be the same to a certain degree, but probably step to more. In some ways, though, I think it'll be easier as we get into the next categories here, because as they talk about some of the sanitation measures, I mean, no surprise that they're going to be very overt in cleaning. They've talked about, you know, really stepping up, being very visible about it, being very accountable, being very consistent in what they're cleaning down. You know, I wouldn't be surprised that we see things very much change, like if you're going to have a Midway Mania open, that those guns are going to be wiped down every time between. Obviously, that's going to slow things down. I think that's going to be part of the whole process. Things like temperature checks coming in, or those types of other checks that may be on the medical side of things, everything's going to be a lot slower. Even if there's less crowds, I think we'll all have to kind of accept that that's going to be a part about it. Now, another thing that they really focused in on, though, was the side of the masks, and that all guests would be required to wear masks during the entirety of their stay, except for during dining. So, you know, you're eating, go ahead and take your mask down. And then for the cast members, the same all the way through, except for the characters, which I thought was funny, because it makes sense that they'd have to say that, but like I never did, you know, despite whatever memes online, I never really pictured like, you know, Jasmine having a mask on or something. Like obviously they're going to have to do some things different there, and they talked about really having the characters kind of in a new way. Where you're going to be able to see them and take photos of them. I'm thinking, you know, closing at Disneyland, where they have the characters up, you know, on the train station or things like that, or like Run Disney events. You know, we'd run, and right there in the Pirates of the Caribbean overhang there, you'd have Maleficent up there talking to you. Maybe Haunted Mansion, some of the ghosts are hanging out there. So I would imagine they're going to come up with some really fun and creative ways, but as they open, we're not going to have situations where everybody's waiting in a long line to hug Mickey and Minnie on Main Street. I bet Mickey and Minnie will be there somewhere up above waving or things like that, which I know, you know, that's going to be really difficult for kids, because kids want to get in there and hug, but I don't think any of us are really surprised about that.
No, I don't think so. I mean, it only makes sense, and hopefully, I mean, there are different, obviously, places that they could be higher up, so that even if the kids wanted to hug them, there isn't anybody who has to like physically stop them. It's just, well, no, you can't. You know, you take your picture. You can't reach them. They're up there for now. So no, it makes sense. And Disney's fortunate in that there are lots of different cool photo places where they can elevate and can keep people or keep the characters at a distance. So that makes sense and not surprising. And eventually, I would imagine, we'll get back to some more of what we're used to, but for the foreseeable future, I don't think that's surprising to anybody. I mean, it would put the actors at risk. It would put the public at risk. It just wouldn't make sense.
Yeah, and obviously with all these things, it'll be interesting to see. I mean, I think so much is going to be about test and adjust. I mean, there's no way around that. So even things that they're going to put out in the public right now, things that were mentioned on the call, there's going to be a certain test and adjust based on public perception, not even getting to the day of the park opening or things like that. And there'll be a lot more spelled out steps to everything as well as we get closer to it and look at what the real rules are going to be there. But also in that vein, they talked about no fireworks or parades, to start out, which again, not a huge surprise. I know when things first closed down there on March, what was it, 14th, at Disneyland, it was like, and people started talking about that, I was like, well, why wouldn't they do parades? And it's like, well, duh, it's not about obviously the parade, it's about all of us being jammed in there watching the parade. But they would do some things with cavalcades, character cavalcades, so kind of having those, and we always kind of enjoy seeing those during rainy days and stuff like that. So again, kind of unique, different ways. I think there'll be some kind of fun, cool things, but obviously there is going to be a big period of time where everything from, getting into the park, deciding to go to the park, getting the ability to go inside the park, then getting there and going through the process to make your way to the turnstiles, then going through the turnstiles, then going to get, if it's going to be a virtual queue, situation for rides. I mean, there's going to be a lot of steps. And I know that's something like we've talked about, thinking that it's probably more likely that Disney World would open before Disneyland. And like, would we want to go visit out there if we even could? And it's like, well, it is a tough call, because if you're going for a vacation type thing, do you want a vacation, even though flights are going to be a lot cheaper, rooms, etc., do you want to go for a vacation anywhere where there's going to be all these extra steps to be able to do anything? Because you've got to think that first time you go into any of these environments, or for a while, it's not going to be like totally magical. It's going to be a lot of workman stuff to get inside. But obviously, for those people that are pass holders, it's a little bit different, because they can maybe go a little bit more times. I mean, for us, probably the first couple times we would go as a pass holder to Disneyland, it's going to be kind of like, oh, wow, we got to go through this, we got to adjust our timing. Oh, wow, this is what they're doing with security, whatever those things. And as we saw with security, from 9/11 on, those things were constantly adjusting and changing, and sometimes changing within a couple days of each other, and sometimes changing unannounced. So these are all things kind of that we'll have to keep an eye out for as we are going on, and kind of just be very patient, obviously, with ourselves, cast members, and everything.
Yeah, hacking your patience is kind of a thing that we always have to deal with, whether it's a convention or a theme park. But yeah, in this scenario, it's going to be just constant adjustments and stuff, and that's kind of how it's been. It's like, at this particular point, we've gone for some time where we're kind of in the status quo, and things are kind of stabilized, and we're all just kind of moving forward. But at the beginning, it was constantly, I mean, it was like, okay, we're going into work. Okay, and same day, no, we're not, and schools are closing, and this and that, and now we have to stay at home. And it was just almost every time we open social media, there was a new announcement. And I don't think it'll be that varied once there's a plan in place, but it's going to be constant adjustments, and we're all going to have to get used to it and get used to how we interact with each other and stuff. And yeah, for now, I mean, it's exciting, at least, that Shanghai's opening, and it's exciting that we seem to have bent the curve, so that hopefully these things will start to open up sooner than later. But yeah, it's all kind of unknown, and we're all just kind of hoping and treading lightly and trying to get to whatever the new normal is and stuff. But I'm happy, at least, that there's this progress, and there's talks, and there's plans in place, and we'll see how things actually impact us and stuff at Disneyland and DCA, where obviously we go primarily. But yeah, it'll be interesting.
Well, I mean, as we're recording, this for us is day 53 of our, shelter in place order. And so, I mean, we've gone and done curbside pickups and, lots of walks outside, taking the dogs and things like that. But for the most part, I mean, yeah, we've been locked down. So it's weird to even be thinking about the park reopening at this stage. But that's why we came and did the video, though, because we thought we decided a few weeks ago, or maybe it was just a week ago, but we said, once there's some indications of what things might look like, and we've seen more and more move from various places throughout the United States of things coming out, whether it's Six Flags or the San Diego parks, and kind of what they're planning. Someone said, well, when Disney puts something out, let's go ahead and talk about it, and just kind of all this stuff that you and I have been talking about for hours and hours and hours these weeks as we have been locked up in the house. Now let's just take like 15 minutes and talk on camera real quick, now that we have some actual information. So we'll see what comes through here as we make our way through time, through the virus. Hopefully you're all staying as safe as possible, staying as locked down as possible. Thank you for all of those of you that are out there that are having to work, so you're essential workers or, you know, in the medical field or any of those things. We appreciate all that you're doing. Thank you. Hopefully videos like this don't need to exist, you know, in the nearer future than what might be possible. We'll see. So we hope we'll get there sooner rather than later, I should say. So with that said, we're going to wrap up this video. Please like and subscribe if you're interested in theme park or convention content. We're trying to still bring as much as we can, even in this weird time where normally we're out in the parks filming stuff, and instead we're locked down in our house doing that. So until next time, we'll see you in line somewhere.